G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 21st of August 2025. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhoodicade, Power Games, Into the Arms Mound and The Erotic Tales from the Empire, Part 1 available on Amazon now. Thank you to all those who support the channel, and if you'd like to support the channel, all my links are in the link tree. Just scan the QR code. All right. The news. Nothing much to report, but there is both good and bad news. Well, as with any war, there's not going to be much good news. But the good news is we're still progressing towards peace. Although Zelensky in an interview has said he'd like to see the security guarantees before meeting with Vladimir Putin. That's a reasonable request. You actually got to know what you're agreeing to. I don't know. However, he has actually said his words. Well, both sides are preparing for further fighting, of course. And of course, Ukraine is testing a new long-range cruise missile for the UK. I mean, for themselves, of course. They developed it all on their own. Country who couldn't make drones suddenly can make ballistic missiles. Isn't that amazing? Sorry, cruise missiles, but yeah. All right, so I'm not an I told you so, but I did say that leading up to the end of the war, one of the indicators is a land grab. Zelensky says, hey, we're going to go on a land grab. I mean, there's going to be further fighting. Well, Russia's already launched its offensive, but it's increased that. And a huge drone and missile strikes. Well, usually the missile strikes are in single digits. And of course, as usual, they don't say what was hit, but except civilian targets. They only targeted civilians. They only killed civilians. You know. But when it comes to security guarantees, Vice President Vance has said that Europe is expected to play the leading role. And actually, what he means is just don't say yeah, and then start arming them and preparing for another war and thinking that's all you need to do. Because that's what led to this war. And of course, the United States is still open to conversation because despite everything, well, they're talking about Zelensky and top European leaders. This is weird. He's referring back. They're referring to the conversation they've already had instead of having the future, but perhaps there is a future conversation that may be taking place. But the only future conversation on the books right now is within 10 days an announcement of a meeting between Russia and, well, actually, Vance is drawing up security guarantees in consultation with Europe, but there's the upcoming meeting between Russia and Zelensky. However, like I said, the land grab is on, and of course, fighting continues with a record number of 40,000 fires this year. So, various drone strikes. Of course, the Ukrainians claim the Russians have only shot down, the Russians have only attacked civilian targets. The Russians claim to have shot down 217 Ukrainian drones. I mean, the European news doesn't even mention half the time that Ukraine fires drones at Russia. And of course, apparently a drone crossed the border. But of course, they never mention that was this deliberate provocation or Ukraine hacking a drone, using electronic warfare to cause problems. Because it's not like they haven't deliberately shot missiles into Poland in the past. Oh, wait a minute, they have. You got to give credit where credit's due. And you also got to point out the when your so-called ally is being a dick. Now, of course, the biggest dick move so far is everybody's pointing to everybody else and saying, you have to carry the cost of permanent peace in Ukraine. Which is a laughing matter for both, for everybody looking at the sidelines to see how lazy Europeans are when it comes to anything. And I'm not talking about the average European, I'm talking about the intellectual class, who by their very nature are lazy people. You know, they think their study is enough hard work, you know, that they've studied hard and deserve everything and just deserve nothing but rewards from now on, comrade. You know, they worked hard for 4 years to get their degree and now they can coast through life. That's a sad reality. I mean, the problem is this left-wing elitism. They think they're the working class, comrade. That they're creating a better world, comrade. We defend the Ukrainian border, but not our own, and then call you all and then engage in unhonorable attacks, accuse you of being a cult, accuse you of being a fraud, accuse you of projecting all your failures onto them. Well, every accusation from the left is a confession. And of course, the British media is destructive and anti-British. They want to impose new sanctions on cryptocurrency networks, saying they're exploited by Russia. Weren't they created by you to exploit? Yeah. It's, you know, good old rules for the situation. But there ain't many differences every day. But now and again, someone comes out and says something interesting. Now, I don't know if this is his personal opinion. It seems to be. And, however, in the past, when communism ended, the Russians were the Russians reached out to everybody. And they did, for a while, try to solve conflicts without going to war. But they're surrounded by people who took advantage of that because they don't apply their own principles to themselves. You want to defend Ukraine's border? Or protect the UK's border? Ukraine, Zelensky has rejected one of the key talking points of Russia, and that is Russia's official language, despite, but ultimatums. Well, isn't that what he's issuing when it comes to, Zelensky again, rules for thee, not for thee, total and never applying their own principles to themselves. The talking point and sticky point about children separated during war, they've actually been uniting families. This is just one of many stories. It's just the West doesn't report it. Now, I don't know how many were relocated by family members to, and this is the problem in war, is that people one day will say one thing. This is generally in life, isn't it? Oh, please, Mr. Red Cross, take my children to Belarus. And then they suddenly say, my children were kidnapped. Why? Because the Ukrainian fascist machine tells them to, because they think down the line that they can get somehow some sort of reward for lying. We know people, particularly political animals, will seize on anything and conflate everything into some huge problem, whether it's, it doesn't matter which side does it, or whether it's the average Joe on the street or a politician. Talking points are a huge problem, like Gavin Newsom, with his talking points saying what a great governor he is. I'm sick and tired of politicians like Gavin Newsom. And I'm sick of the angry blue Democrat and their anger and their angst and their smears and their lies. They just can't face reality. But the people who support Gavin Newsom are you most likely to say people who support Zelensky. You know, they're usually the type who has a troubled past. They want to, you know, reset the books with God. They want to reconcile their beliefs. You know, want to make up for all their past mistakes and buy their way into heaven by demanding you do better. You do all the good work. You do all the heavy lifting, and then say, "Oh, look at me, I'm virtuous." You know, they do all these fundraisers. You know, I'm sick of people and their fundraisers. Get your bleeding hands out of my pocket. All right? You want to give to these con artist NGOs? Go ahead. But I know most NGOs are con artists. They're either government pet influencers or market manipulation like George Soros. Or tax dodgers like Jeff Bezos. And a lot of these NGOs, look at these liberal NGOs. Some of them pay themselves, like Feed the Children, pay themselves $260,000 a year. Or Cherie Blair, who fundraised for a hospital and charged them more for her time than what the hospital fundraised. Time and time again, the idiotic average Joe drags their knuckles, and as soon as they hear something negative about their side, they just engage in ad hominem attacks and say, "It's just Fox News talking points." So we end up with war in Ukraine because the average Joe doesn't want to be told anything, because they don't want to believe in anything other than their side, me good, you bad. You know, Saturday morning cartoon politics. And they end up with this so-called coalition of willing who keeps claiming they're going to send a military contingent to Ukraine but won't defend their own countries. And then, basically, when fanatics start running amok in Ukraine, they turn a blind eye because all they can see is the opportunity for arms sales. Because my GDP seems to be so fucking important to people, when in reality, it's not. I mean, look at the GDP of China. It's not. It's all fake. Now, of course, the Russian Foreign Ministry is reminded that the presence of NATO troops on Ukrainian soil is unacceptable to Russia. Meanwhile, Zelensky's claiming they have this new missile called the Flamingo, which is not even a Ukrainian bird, by the way. And they somehow could mass produce these missiles. Yeah. Oh, of course, it's very similar to the British cruise missile. Of course it is. But Germany is now the latest country to find political turmoil within its own government over the plan to dispatch troops to Ukraine, because they're all facing opposition right now. Keir Starmer, they're facing a probably sanctions by the United States soon for his jailing of people for memes, jailing people for praying, jailing people for protesting against the invasion of their country, against the fact that some arsehole from Africa can get more benefits than a British pensioner or a British veteran. There are benefits that aren't even available to Brits. And of course the council's giving flats to foreign invaders, whether they're legal or illegal, while Brits wait longer and longer on the housing list. It's genocide, but the left, they pat themselves on the back and say, oh no, we're just being humble, we're being virtuous. No, King Charles is an apostate, and the left are apostates. They're nothing but political animals. You know, they're pigs, and the media is little squealers guarding the barn, you know, for the pigs. And of course, Keir Starmer justifies it himself by saying, well, if I know to eat, somebody else will. No, the government has the collective power and the collective will to stand up and do the right thing. But they don't, because Labour is the party of treason, it's the party of Marxism, it's the party of destruction, it's the party of smears, lies and Satanism. They keep talking about Christianity. You don't believe in it. Oh, I don't think Europe knows what it believes in other than power. And I honestly think you want to use plain language, set clear goals, but Ukraine, of course, is not interested in a long-term settlement. Oh, damn. I'm sorry. But of course, are they ever? Well, I think Zelensky is going to be forced to meet with Russia. I think Trump will insist that they attack Russian fuel assets and then say, oh, stop destroying Russian, and then say to Russia, stop destroying our infrastructure. And again, this is the selfish nature of Ukraine. It is the selfish nature of the left, where they expect everybody else to obey some sort of set of rules, which they set, which they don't hold themselves to. Again, the map is slow loading today. Oh my God. Hold on. I'm going to have to pause recording. Alright, so we have missile strikes in western Ukraine, as well as drones. We have air defense alerts, which cannot be relied on or reliable. Of course, most of the drone and missile attacks, they're not going to say what they really hit. But what we see, of course, is artillery exchanges along the border. And, of course, the map is slow loading because of all the bloody ads, which you can't block because then the map won't work. Alright, so we have artillery across and basically military action on the border, particularly in the buffer zones. But now and again you have deep strikes conducted by Russia. Movement at Kupiansk, but no movement into Kupiansk, which seems to be a common theme for the last 12 months, where Russia has tend to lay siege and only take small amounts at a time. And people go, well, that's because Russia was trying to force Ukraine to give up Lugansk and Donetsk without inflicting too many casualties. But Ukraine prefers the casualties to... because Zelensky's pride. He doesn't care. He doesn't pay the cost. But there's some advances in the Lyman area, not much. Mostly back conflict without resolution. A lot of it, of course, is just pot shots. Some of it is drones. And of course, a lot of it is artillery. There's some movement here on the front, but not much. Although it does appear, at least here in the north of Pavlovsk, that Russia's taken more territory, but elsewhere, not so much. So they're still here fighting in the outskirts. Although there's fighting on the outskirts of Pavlovsk and Milorad again, they're also still fighting here. Despite a small breakthrough here, they've made no other breakthroughs, and they appear to have pulled back from Movesk. And there seems to have been some, but not much activity here, though it appears to be no gains, military gains. I say appears because some of these maps, sometimes this map still has old markers and hasn't updated. But the current peace deal is 100% of Lugansk, 100% of Donetsk, 70% of of Zaporozhye and Kherson, which is pretty much the land that Russia currently occupies. Those 100% of Crimea, of course. Russia's saying not much else. It appears, though, however, we've had several conversations appear and later disappear about the 2022 accords. This was a 10-point peace plan, which Zelensky was almost going to accept until Boris Johnson told them to fight on, which he claims he didn't. He only said, we'll stand with you if you did, insisting that it was Zelensky's decision. Zelensky is saying it was his advisors at the time. Everybody's blaming, round and round it goes. I think a lot of people don't like Boris Johnson, so it's easy to blame him rather than saying, hey, well, why didn't Keir Starmer do something when he came to office? Stop blaming people who have no power now just as a means to alleviate the guilt of people like Keir Starmer, who, when they came to office, doubled down, even though he's supposed to oppose the Tories, has done everything that he says they did wrong. And everybody's saying the Tories weren't being Tories, and haven't been Tories since Thatcher, that the Tories were doing everything that Labour wanted. And of course it comes down to what you believe rather than what you will analyse, right? If you don't start analysing and looking at the truth and looking at the results and saying, well, yeah, why is Keir Starmer bleating about the Tories and doing everything that the Tories that he claims the Tories did bad? He does it himself, particularly on immigration and doubling down on immigration, to the point where he wants, by the end of his term, to have Britons a minority in their homeland, just so he can win elections. This is unacceptable in any other country. But the West, because it's so polluted by the left, so polluted by selfish idiots who just won't look past what they hear. They won't believe what they can't see for themselves. If it doesn't hurt them, they don't care. Particularly the LGBTQ community, who have no interest in the future. They're just selfish hedonists who want to grab as much as they can for themselves. All they care about is bleating about free healthcare and free housing and all these other freebies while they sit around playing their music or reading their poetry. Yes, I'm a writer. But I'm talking about people who don't do anything to earn a living. You could try and earn a living. I'm not talking about, musicians who go out and earn a living. I'm talking about the people who bum around, who can work but bum around. There's a lot of people, and what they say, something like 40,000 people, right, on welfare in the UK, who are perfectly able, who refuse work. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, how many it is, or what they were talking about. It's just the usual sensational number they pull out of the air. But see, when Labor talks about putting people back to work, all of a sudden they're the people who cry when the Tories do it, suddenly are nowhere to be found. So I'm talking about hypocrisy. It's like all these people who want to send people to war. It's not them who goes to war. They're always bleating. All these people who support Ukraine, none of them get off their ass and support Ukraine. And a lot of them are bleeding muppets who sit around producing nothing but spend all day on social media. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And please support the channel. You can support me on Patreon. Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or in my profile. Thank you to all those who support the channel. I really appreciate it. Now, about my sound volume, I hope it's fixed this time. I've noticed that, and it doesn't happen to anybody else, but when I upload, I lose audio volume. I've lost count of how many times I've uploaded videos and it's lost audio. See you in the next video, and bye for now.